Hi, this is Sara Mikesell with the Pig Site, and today we're online with Dr. Ramon Muns. His studies and research have taken him around the world, from Catalonia to Australia to Denmark to Southeast Asia, to his current role as the Principal Scientific Officer at Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute in Northern Ireland. Thanks so much for being with us today, Ramon.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Sarah.
Very good. So let's dive right into our conversation we wanted to have today. And we wanted to talk about the challenges that farmers are faced with. Lots of farmers are faced with more smaller pigs from larger litters. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, as you mentioned, with the current genetic breeds and the genetic selection that we've had in the sector on the last years, we have these sows producing these large litters. And of course, with these large litters, they come a bigger number or an increased number of piglets as more born with a small birth weight, with all the challenges, this variability that carry. And especially one of the things that we found is that up until recently, cross-fostering was a strategy that worked for farmers very well. We were playing with this variability just by rearranging the litters, either just adjusting the numbers, so all the litters would have 14 piglets or so, or whether to create litters of smaller pigs, litters of bigger pigs or bigger pigs. But now with these even larger litter sizes, the problem is that the number of pigs we have, not on one sow, but on a farrowing room, it's bigger than the number of viable teats that we have in the farrowing room. So you can do cross-fostering, but you'll always end up with a surplus number of piglets. And here is when more imaginative strategies start to come into play.
Very good. So what did you learn from your recent research?
So we've worked here in AFBI. We work quite a lot on working with the small piglets, and I'm going to talk about a couple of studies because I don't want to talk too much. But two studies that were very applied because they were both done in commercial farms, so in a very applied systems from the farmer point of view. And the first one, for example, we went into a farm with the initial objective was to do work on nursing sows. This kind of system that recently has gained popularity of keeping a sow that it's now weaned, but keeping it there for an extra week or more weeks just to absorb piglets from younger batches. So that was the initial idea. But when we arrived at the farm, we observed that the farmer was doing a kind of a different approach. Rather than keeping a sow, which has some kind of biosecurity risk because you have an older animal that you keep on with younger population. So what the farmer was doing was moving forward litters. So in a weekly batch system, what this farmer was doing is that at a batch of sows and litters that were 14 days into lactation, he would pick up the bigger litter or the bigger litters, maybe 2 or 3 bigger litters, and they would move them into an artificial rearing space that he had in the farm, and then feed them with replacer milk, creep feed, and water at a high temperature, ambient temperature. And then this empty sow, rather than moving the sow, was moving forward a litter of 7 days of age, a big litter, to occupy that space, and so on. So then a 24-hour litter was moving it forward to occupy this empty space of a sow 7 days into lactation. And then the sow at 24 hours that was empty, it was the recipient of the surplus piglets that initially didn't have enough teats to allocate to. I hope it makes sense. It can be a little bit complicated to explain management systems. So what we did is we actually tried to look if this system works for the piglet and for the sow. Is this actually, in terms of the growth of the piglets, does it work? So we compare it. So we had these 4 treatments. We follow litters that were moved at 14 days of age to this artificial rearing system, litters that were moved at 7 days, at 24 hours, and then litters that remain with their biological sow all the way through. So we follow them. And what we observed, very interestingly, so all the litters that were moved forward, rather than being weaned at 28 days of age, here in the UK, 28 days of age is the legal kind of requirement, or it's when everybody weans the piglets at 28 days of age. Under certain exceptions, you can wean them at 21. So that it's the legislation kind of allows, gives the opportunity to do that. So these litters that were moved forward were weaned with 21 days of age rather than 28. And what we observe is that the fact of moving litters forward into a sow, it didn't compromise the growth. So these piglets growth equally well up to weaning. Whereas the piglets that were moved into this artificial system, they reduced weight. So they were reduced weight. They were weaned with lower weight compared to the ones that had been moved into a sow, if that makes sense. Interestingly, we weighed the animals again after weaning, so at 40 days of age. And then what we observed is that these differences disappeared. So all the piglets, irrespective if they were all the lactation with the biological sow and wean at 28 days of age, if they were in this artificial system, wean at 21 days of age, or if they were moved into an older sow and wean at 21 days of age, it didn't matter. At 40 days, they all had the same weight. So they catch up, which kind of makes sense because the ones that you put into this artificial system, it's kind of a partial weaning. So they go through initial stress that the other ones, they don't suffer. So you see the effect at 21 days when they are actually moved to the nursery. Whereas the other ones that have been with sows or lactation, then they have the stress when they are moved to the nursery. So probably that's our hypothesis, is that that's why we observe this compensatory growth. It was just the different moments of when the stress of weaning or partial weaning was established. It's worth mentioning though that this system of moving the piglets into an artificial rearing system, it's kind of a gray area when it comes to legislation, because it's not a full weaning, because the piglets are still with liquid, so milk replacer, but they are not with the sow. So it's kind of a partial weaning. So it's kind of a gray area on that aspect, but it worked very well. And in my opinion, it kind of prevents this biosecurity risk of keeping a sow back in a nurse system. So that was one study that we did in a commercial farm. Another one that we did, this farm had invested in a milk system for piglets in the farrowing room. So had installed a small drinkers that were administering all the time continuously access to a milk replacer. So the piglets were in the sow with the sow, and then they had this extra supply of milk. So what the farmer was interested and what we were interested is how large can we go in the litter at cross-fostering thanks of having this extra milk supply. So what we did, we created two groups, one of keeping the litters at 15 piglets and another of going with 17 piglets per litter, which is quite, assuming that a sow would have around 14 teats. Here we are adding 3 piglets. So we did these two groups, and then we monitored the piglets' growth, mortality, and we also registered the number of antibiotic treatments that would require among groups. Interestingly, so we found that at weaning, at 28 days of age, here everyone was at 28 days of age at weaning, the piglets in 17 in litters of 17 piglets, they had higher mortality. Okay. So we are talking about 1 piglet per liter died, slightly more, but to round it to numbers, it was, let's say, 1 piglet per liter. Whereas the piglets in the litters of 15, there was basically no mortality. One piglet here, one piglet there, but pretty much the sows win 15 piglets, pretty much all the sows. And when we looked at the winning weights, the average winning weight of the litter was similar between treatments. So that was interesting. And when we looked at the antibiotic, the use of antibiotic, it didn't differ between groups. They had to intervene in terms of treatments because of a scour or whatever other problem they would have occasionally. They intervene equally between both groups. So kind of what we observe here is that you could push to 17, but we will lose one piglet in the process. So kind of it seemed that 16 was probably the ideal number. We had 15 and 17 that we were comparing, but the 15 were doing very well with barely no mortality, and the 17 we were seeing one piglet die per liter on average, but without affecting the average winning weight. So 16 seemed the ideal, which is then it's a matter of making numbers in terms of the cost of the milk replacer and so on. If these 2 extra piglets going from 14 to 16, if they compensate the cost of the milk system. But it seemed very promising. So we could increase from 14 to 16, because before the milk system, this farm was cross-fostering at 14 piglets.
Right. And it does seem like an interesting, I mean, that is such an interesting idea of having this supplemental storage of milk replacer, right? That these piglets have access to. When you know you're having big litters, you know you're going to need more, right?
Yeah, because that's the problem. So the milk yield or milk production by the sow is limiting.
Right.
As we said, we have more piglets than teats, and they can grow at a high rate. So milk is the limiting factor for their growth. So anything that would provide help. And this way you have initial investment, but in terms of labor cost, then it's very little because you only have you have kind of a small kitchen, as it's called,
right.
somewhere in the house, and that is where you prepare daily the milk powder with the hot water, and it gets mixed there, and from there it's distributed automatically to all the pens in the farrowing rooms, and then it's on demand. So
right, that's interesting.
And then it also have the potential that which is something to study or to work further, of maybe you can do certain supplementations in that milk for right. the first week or for the first 15 days, something like that.
Very cool. That's really interesting. So from your research, what are some of the practical tips and take-home messages that you can offer to our readers based on some of these findings from your data and from your research?
Using these 2 examples I've been talking about, I would say that when, especially in farms with a 1-week bite system, it's very good to consider moving piglets, moving litters forward. I would even prefer it to nurse sows. But when doing that, I think there are 2 main things to consider. First, that be sure you are moving the heavier or the bigger litter in the sense of the size of the pigs.
Right.
So you are moving the bigger pigs forward, and maybe even to avoid this gray area of the legislation with this artificial system, I would even say just win the bigger litters at 21 days of age, win them together with the previous batch, and then start all the chain of movement week by week, pushing 1, 2 or 3 liters, whatever liters you need forward. That would be my take-home message from this study that we did. And then from the second one, the take-home message is that installing, if someone is considering to install this similar milking system, I don't know how to call it, milking system or milk supply system in their farrowing pens, they can consider that if usually a litter is usually fostered at 14 piglets, assuming 1 piglet per teat, we know from our results and also from similar studies that I've read about, they can increase this litter up to 16 piglets without compromising welfare, if we consider pre-weaning mortality as a welfare issue, and not even compromising the sow. I didn't mention it before, but we also monitor the sow, whether if it was in terms of body condition, it was also putting an extra pressure, but no, it was also, you don't compromise the sow having this extra milk supply in the farrowing pen.
Very good. Well, that is, it's a lot of information to kind of take in, especially the structure of kind of moving these, the pigs forward as well. And this idea of having an extra, an extra supply of milk. I think that those are both unique concepts, and it's great glad to see that you're doing all this research, because this problem doesn't seem to be going away. It seems to probably be becoming bigger, right? A bigger issue continuously. So very good. Well, thank you so much for your time today and all the information, Ramon.
Oh, no, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Very good. This is Sara Mikesell with the Pig Site.